The wind screamed louder than the curses at the ragged edges of Leo Thorne's robes as he hung suspended in the freezing air, 300 feet above the chaos. Below him, 12 Death Eaters, arranged in a perfect viper formation, were tearing the astronomy tower apart, brick by brick. The night sky was choked with green and red light, illuminating the terror etched onto the faces of the students screaming from the windows below. Leo's knuckles were white around a handle of a chipped Clean-Sweep 7 that had seen better decades, let alone better days. And his left eye was already swelling shut from a stray hex. He was alone. The rest of the aerial patrol had been scattered or shot down minutes ago. He had no backup, no speed advantage against the enemy's sleek Nimbus racers, and exactly one option left. An option that every professor, prefect, and friend had called a death sentence: the Arrow Impact Charm. A suicidal piece of magic that turned a wizard into a living missile. If you want to know how this forgotten student turned a banned spell into Hogwarts' last defense, stay with me until the end of this story. It was late April, the darkest part of the war. A time when the stone walls of Hogwarts felt more like a prison than a school. While the Golden Trio was out hunting Horcruxes, the students left behind were fighting a war of attrition they were slowly losing. Leo Thorne was never the hero type. He was a seventh-year Gryffindor, known more for detention than dueling. The kind of student who barely scraped a passing grade in Transfiguration, but could talk for hours about the aerodynamics of magical creatures. He had spent his nights in the restricted section, obsessing over obscure dragon-handling manuals from Romania. He had found a spell used by handlers to stun unruly Ukrainian ironbellies mid-flight. A charm that compressed air and magic into a lethal shock cone around a falling object. When he proposed modifying it for a broomstick during a DA meeting, the room had gone silent. Neville had looked at him with pity. Ginny had told him it would liquefy his internal organs before he even reached the target. You cannot control a fall at terminal velocity, they said. You will be a smear on the pavement. But looking down at the 12 dark shapes circling the tower, watching the protective wards flicker and die like a candle in a storm, Leo knew the time for safety and theory was over. The Death Eaters were flying in a tight, arrogant circle, a formation designed to concentrate their fire on a single point until the stone melted. They were laughing. He could hear their mocking jeers carried on the wind. They knew there was no one left to stop them. The teachers were pinned down in the courtyard. The Order members were fighting for their lives at the gates. The sky belonged to the Dark Lord's servants. Leo banked hard right, dodging a stray killing curse that hissed past his ear like an angry hornet. The Clean-Sweep shuddered under the strain. It was too slow. A jet of purple light clipped his left stirrup, incinerating the leather and searing his ankle. He gasped, nearly slipping from the handle. That was his mistake, trying to fight them on their terms. You cannot dogfight a squadron that outguns you 12-1. He needed height. He needed to be above them, where their arrogance blinded them to the threat. Ignoring the pain in his leg, he leaned forward, urging the old broom upward, climbing through the smoke and the biting cold. He could feel the magic of the castle weakening below him, a hum that was slowly fading into silence. He climbed past 500 feet, then 800. The air grew thin, burning his lungs. The sounds of battle drifted away, replaced by the hollow rush of the wind. He was dangerously exposed, a lone silhouette against the moon. But the Death Eaters were too focused on their prey below to look up. They were dissecting the tower, savoring the destruction. Leo reached 1,000 feet and leveled out. His hands were shaking, not just from the cold, but from the terrifying reality of what he was about to do. He had practiced the wand movement 100 times in the dormitory, whispering the incantation into his pillow, but he had never cast it for real. If this forgotten legend of Hogwarts is already touching your heart, and you would like to help keep these stories alive, you can support the channel by clicking the thanks button below the video. Every little bit helps me continue bringing you more hidden tales of courage and magic. Leo looked down. From this height, the Death Eaters looked like a ring of black insects. He adjusted his grip on the wand, pointing it not at the enemy, but at the tip of his own broom. He took a breath that rattled in his chest, thinking of the first years huddled in the tower, thinking of the friends who had already fallen. There was no strategy left. There was only gravity. He kicked the tail of the broom upward and pointed the nose straight down, perpendicular to the earth. He whispered the incantation, feeling the magic coil around him like a suffocating blanket. Aeris compressio. The world tilted. Gravity took hold. He didn't just fall, he accelerated. The wind roar vanished instantly, replaced by a high-pitched metallic whine as the pressure bubble formed around the nose of his broom. The spell was working. It was compressing the air in front of him into a solid cone of force, a battering ram made of atmosphere. Usually, a dive is silent until it is too late, but this was different. The air screamed as it was forced out of his path. His vision tunneled. Gray spots danced at the edges of his sight. The pressure against his eyes was blinding. 4 seconds. He passed the cloud layer, a blur of white mist that evaporated against his shield. The speed was agonizing. He was falling faster than a human body should ever move. Read the following story with a warm, deep, and whimsical British accent, similar to a classic fantasy audiobook narrator. The magic neutralizing the air resistance that would normally slow him down. 3 seconds. The sound of his descent began to reach the ground, a low, thundering bass note that vibrated the windows of the castle. The Death Eaters paused. One of them looked up, sensing the disturbance. But he wasn't looking for a boy on a broom. He was looking for a spell, a dragon, a curse. He didn't see the needle-thin streak of motion plummeting from the zenith. 2 seconds. Leo screamed, not in fear, but to equalize the pressure in his peers that threatened to burst his eardrums. He was aiming for the dead center of their ring. If he missed by an inch, he would hit the stone of the tower and vaporize himself. If he hit a Death Eater directly, they would both die. He had to thread the needle. He had to be perfect. 1 second. He saw the masks. He saw the wands raised in confusion. He saw the fear dawn in their eyes as they realized what was coming. He punched through the center of their formation. He didn't fire a curse. He didn't need to. The compressed air detonated the moment he broke their altitude plane. It wasn't an explosion of fire, but of pure kinetic force. A shockwave of distorted atmosphere slammed outward at 700 miles an hour. It hit the 12 brooms like a physical wall. Wood snapped like dry kindling. Protective wards shattered into glittering dust. Heavy black robes were torn from bodies as the Death Eaters were ragdolled in 12 different directions, their formation obliterated instantly by the sheer displacement of air. The impact was catastrophic. The shockwave blew out the windows of the astronomy tower and knocked the defenders inside off their feet. Leo's broom, the faithful clean sweep, disintegrated under the stress of the pull-up. He didn't land, he crashed. He skipped across the air currents, tumbling uncontrollably toward the Quidditch pitch. Read the following story with a warm, deep, and whimsical British accent by the canopy of the forbidden forest trees before he hit the soft earth of the outfield. Silence fell over the tower. The sky was empty. No brooms, no green lights. Just the drifting debris of 12 Nimbus 2000s raining down like confetti. Leo woke up 3 days later in the hospital wing. Every capillary in his eyes had burst, leaving them terrified red pools. His left arm was fractured in 3 places, and his ribs felt like they had been kicked by a centaur. The bed next to him was empty. The castle was quiet, a heavy, exhausted silence. Madame Pomfrey bustled over, looking stern and pale. She told him the official report said an unknown defensive anomaly had cleared the airspace that night. A freak weather event, a magical storm. But then, a small first-year student peeked around the curtain. He was holding a piece of jagged wood, a splinter from a clean sweep 7. He placed it on the bedside table and whispered a thank you. He had been in the tower. He had seen the dive. Leo never flew combat again. His ears rang for the rest of his life, and his shoulder never quite healed right. He wasn't awarded an Order of Merlin. He wasn't mentioned in the history books that chronicled the Battle of Hogwarts. To history, he was just another student who fought. But the 12 dark wizards who woke up broken and wandless in the Forbidden Forest, knowing they had been taken down by a single boy on a relic broomstick, would never forget him. Sometimes the most foolish magic is the only kind that works, and sometimes the smallest spell is the one that saves the castle. If this forgotten legend of Hogwarts touched your heart, tell me in the comments. What would you have done in Leo's place? Like the video, share it with another Harry Potter fan, and subscribe to hear more hidden stories of courage, magic, and impossible odds. Sometimes being reckless is just another word for being brave.